And welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 77. I'm your host, as always, the Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you today?
I'm good, Don. How are you?
I'm good. We're going to be talking about some reviews of a few TV shows, some movies, and some early trailers, and what we're hyped about, what we're not hyped about. But first, something I would say I think we're both pretty hyped about is the trailer for Bad Boys 3. Just jumping into it. This is one of those movies that we've been talking about for a very long time. A lot of people in the industry are talking about when's Bad Boys 3 coming out, always harassing Will Smith, and it's real because I always say to myself, a movie isn't real until I see the trailer, and I saw the
Mhm.
trailer.
Yeah, I remember. I think on this show, like I mentioned how like I think Will Smith and Martin Lawrence like did a picture on Instagram that basically like I guess to a lot of people confirmed like yes, this movie is being made, but now that we finally had a trailer, we get a bit of a kind of taste of what this movie is going to exactly be about and like. Um, and yeah, from first impressions, it looks pretty good. I think maybe like the problem that it might have, which I don't think is a problem, I think it's fine. That I think like a lot of shows from like the 80s, like 70s, 80s, 90s, tended to be these kind of unique ideas for very like simple plots, right? Like for example, if you think about something like Silence of the Lambs, right? It's about a serial killer helping a cop find another serial killer. But these days, you'd get something like small scale as like a 10 episode TV series on HBO or something, right?
Well,
So
for example, there was the Hannibal TV show that
yeah,
actually
there's
did
the
come
Hannibal
out,
TV show,
which is
yeah.
pretty good, by the way.
I've heard good things. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it, but like I think like for a lot of shows that I think because TV has like kind of like gone up in like its production quality, like you don't get something like what is this? That movie Seven, right? It's a great movie, but I don't think the modern movie would kind of have this kind of really kind of unique idea and put it into a show, into a movie. They might make it into a TV series, maybe because it's more profitable that way. I'm not sure, but like Bad Boys was one of those times where you kind of had like a ragtag team of people kind of doing ridiculous things. And I remember watching. I was very hyped for Bad Boys 2 when that came out, and it also had, I think honestly one of the best like movie soundtracks, like for like a live action kind of like sorry movie, right? Like it's got a really really dope soundtrack.
Mm.
Probably the follow up to like for me of a movie having a really cool soundtrack would probably be Black Panther. So the if we're talking about like kind of music from like the hip hop genre and stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for Bad Boys. Was there anything that kind of stood out for you during the trailer?
Uh, I guess not really so much, but I'm just happy that I guess there's more of it. I think that's what it really comes down
Mm.
to. All we wanted really is just more bad boys and getting these characters and I guess Will Smith's dynamic with
Martin Lawrence,
Martin
yeah.
Lawrence, yeah, and I think like those two really work together really well off each other, and yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy there's more. I know for a fact we don't have Michael Bay directing, so it could be a different style of movie. But I guess yeah, I don't know what Michael Bay's doing these days. I guess hopefully he's not doing any more
Well,
Transformers, but
I
he's doing
don't
his
think
thing.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'd
don't
hope not
think
because
so.
I did watch Bumblebee and I thought that was a general good uh, return to form. But
Did
yeah,
that movie do any good? Because that's my thing, right? Like, eh, I've heard good things about Bumblebee, but there hasn't been any follow up. Like, oh, we're making a new Transformers movie. So did people not go and watch that movie
I
or
think
what?
yeah, it did. I in comparison to the rest of the Transformers, I think it's probably its lowest performing. I think
Right. Despite being a
because
good.
it very much was more. It's basically a boy and his dog, but obviously a girl and a transformer. And and it's set in the 80s, and it's like it got some really cool, unique stuff that it does with Transformers, and it makes it more true to form to the cartoon look and everything.
Mhm.
But I think obviously the problem was it didn't really. It's different marketing. It didn't have it didn't really promote any of the bombastic action, which it really doesn't have much of. So it's very different style and take on it, which I liked. It's a very good break, but yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes Hollywood can be a little bit fickle. Sometimes also as well as like the YouTube algorithm. So if you could always please like, share, subscribe to our channel, because obviously YouTube sometimes does some weird things. Like sometimes people don't watch Bumblebee at the same times. People don't see our videos. You never know.
Yeah. It is really weird. Like, sometimes with like how like YouTube is like, I know, I remember reading there was something like a big crackdown on like either channels or like videos taken down and stuff. Obviously, I don't think we've had any issues with that, but it does help us out. Like, if you enjoy listening to us, feel free to support us in whatever way. But speaking of trailers that recently came out, another trailer that came out was the Birds of Prey trailer, or also known as the Emancipation of Harley Quinn. Like, I don't know. Oh, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn.
This is basically like what 2 episodes ago we were talking about the High School Musical, the TV show.
I think it was last. I think it was last.
Something like that.
Yeah, the last podcast we were talking about.
See, I remember it. I feel like they did it on purpose, so I remember how bad the name is.
Mm.
But yeah, Birds of Prey movie. Obviously, this is pretty much the second time we've, I guess, seen Harley Quinn in live action form. Obviously played by Margot Robbie. Aside from Suicide Squad, and I think it's been quite a long time. I guess since we've seen the character, and I guess the hype of Harley Quinn has very much died down in recent years. I do remember like a few years ago, all it was Harley Quinn. Everyone who knew who Harley Quinn was. It's died down a bit, but obviously I think maybe this could be a re-emerging trend, because basically the Birds of Prey is an all-female team. Has people like Black Canary in it, and sometimes in the comics you had Katana, and a few other characters in this, and it feels like this movie, it feels very I'm very interested of what this movie is, because its sense of style is very different, I'd say, from the 30-second snippet they give us.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the snippet. There's like, I kind of liked the how there was the I think it's supposed to be played alongside it, right?
Oh yeah, the trailer is yes.
Yeah, because like they have the balloons floating, which I also kind of I like that. It kind of crosses really well. It'd be cool if like more trailers or more, like, I guess you can't really do it with anyone but someone like Harley Quinn or a Deadpool, where like the trailer is very meta in its approach and what it's promoting, right? But yeah, like, yeah, the trailer, it seemed interesting, but again, I don't know if it's gonna. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the direction the movie is going. But I mean, I'm happy to be disappointed. Like, disappointed in like thinking that, as in this movie being a good movie.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. From what I've seen, it looks like, at least from what I can see, the set design looks kind of cool. It looks like they've kind of made a lot of stuff practical these days, which is really cool, because pretty much Marvel is majority of the time just it's all kind of CG in a way. And this kind of looks like it is very practical. What I'm really hoping is that the action scenes are quite well. Actually, there was a kind of a thing about, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that they got one of the guys who directed John Wick to come back and do reshoots for action scenes.
Yeah, that's true. We did talk about it on the show.
So I do hope that like maybe they're gonna do some extra flair to them, but I don't know. Sometimes reshoots can be good or bad, but I'm hoping they do something interesting with them, because we've got Huntress, I guess like very Batman like, I guess when it comes to power set of things. Black Canary, I'm not quite sure if they're gonna do the full on like having the whole shouts and her voice being a weapon. I don't know where this kind of places things as well, because I think there was early rumors as well that said Ewan McGregor's character doesn't really wear the black mask, and he's the black mask character, or like he does for like a scene or something. That whole type of stuff. It reminds me of like early comic book stuff where it's like, we're gonna tease you with this character, but not really give you the character that you want to give.
That's awful. I hope that's not true. I hope he at least has like it's this whole thing that they do, like with it's the same thing with Thor in the Thor movies, or just any movie where he's in, because he's supposed to have the helmet. He's supposed to have that dope helmet from the first movie, when he's supposed to be like reined in as like the new king of Asgard or whatever, which looks way better. But no, they're like, oh well, no, because that obviously covers the character's face. And it's the same thing with Captain America as well. Like obviously, like there are scenes where he does wear the like the full mask, but when they can get away with not putting Chris Evans in the helmet, like I guess a helmet is a little bit like, it's not just a helmet, it's got like, the not domino mask, but it's got like the mask aspect to it as
Mm.
well. But I think like when they want to get away with putting getting him to wear the full gear, they definitely try to. So it sucks if that's the case, but I guess we'll see. I guess Ewan McGregor's obviously going to go off to do bigger and better things under the new Obi-Wan series. So I'm
So long
more
as he
interested.
says stuff like "Hello there, high ground," we got a lot more meme material coming.
Exactly.
That's what I'm happy about.
But what? Yeah, I mean, was there anything from the trailer that really kind of stuck out for you for the
Not
new?
really. I guess
Yeah,
the only
me
thing that really
neither.
stuck out to me really was I guess Harley Quinn, and like she throws her hammer, which she has her mace back. But as I mentioned before, the set in that area looks pretty cool and very unique and interesting. But I'm not quite sure what else it does. I guess there's a scene where she is winking, and then if you pause it and you see in the background, she's got her two like hyena dogs.
Hmm.
So that I think it's maybe more of a different, I guess more comic book accurate version of the character of Harley Quinn. But yeah, I don't
Hmm.
know. But even then, like DC's still in a weird place because this is the emancipation of Harley Quinn, therefore meaning and we've already talked many times. The rumors and the whole story is like it's basically her saying goodbye to the Joker,
Hmm.
and we're having a new Joker movie coming out very soon, and yeah, essentially, where does this place in the whole thing? Like, are they gonna bring Jared Leto's Joker back for like I don't know, like a scene
No,
to bring
no,
something, or are they just gonna be like
of
this and
course.
just get rid of it? That's what I'm very
No, they're
confused now.
not. Jared, no, 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 no. Come on, they're not having Jared Leto back. Otherwise, they would have had him in the news in some capacity. I'm pretty sure that guy's basically cut all ties with him after they basically didn't use him in the Suicide Squad movie. They've just moved on from it, especially given that they had moved on to make the new Joker movie, which, by the way, also kind of came out, with some reviews recently on Rotten Tomatoes. It's currently sitting at, I think, an 88, 86 currently, which is pretty good news because there's like a lot of reviewers like that kind of give it in their initial impressions. Obviously, like take things with a grain of salt when you have like the initial reviews for something. It can definitely change once uh,
I
the
guess the
full
masses
review.
get them. I guess because it's like it
Hmm.
was shown at one of the film festivals, and that's the thing. A lot of the film festivals, it can be a lot hit and miss because there's been parts like even the news of this is like it had an 8 minute standing ovation, and it's just like
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know how overblown and things like I think it's overhyping it maybe, or even like
Hmm.
sometimes critics say something like they don't like certain movies or certain directors and what they do, but then audience seem to like it. Like I know for a fact like
Hmm.
Nicholas Winding Refn, the guy who did Drive, he did make a movie after Drive, and after his mass appeal, and everyone's like, yeah, we don't like this movie, even though that's his normal directing type of style. So sometimes critics just do not understand, I guess, where the director's coming from, and it really takes you have to be out of the scene or out of the bubble to really understand it. But going back to the whole Joker thing, yeah, early reviews seemed really good, and it doesn't seem like to be a mess at all. And generally it is a good sign when a studio, whether it be a movie studio or a game studio, releases more or less a review for the product like at least 2 weeks onwards beforehand, because then it gives it
Hmm.
like a little bit more credence and they're
Yeah, more
confident that
hype.
it'll get
Yeah.
good reviews. You know.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely get it. It's just, when I usually see some like DC films have tend to have a bit of like a shaky start when it comes to like, the initial reviews. Like people will give it like, 80 or something, and then it just drops straight down to like, a 50 or a 30 or something like that. I just hope it's good because I mean, I look, I like DC properties. I like the Joker. The trailer looks really interesting. So yeah, I only hope for the best when it comes to all things Joker related. The other thing that recently came or was on the news was that the new Mandalorian TV series on Disney Plus, that apparently it's going to fill in a little bit of like the mystery between like episode 6 and 7, specifically referring to like the origins of the First Order. Now, I don't know if I said it last time when we were talking about it, but I didn't want them to focus on anything to do with like episode 7 for this show. I wanted them to just be like bounty hunters and just finding people and killing people.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if it's gonna kind of tie in with like the First Order, like ooh, and this is how the First Order came about, and I don't know. I feel like it's a mistake,
I
but
feel like I feel like it's everyone's trying to do the whole MCU Marvel thing where everything's interconnected, and it's
I mean
like,
that's fine. That's
and that's
fine.
fine. But that's the thing. But I wanted a bounty hunter TV show that wouldn't relate to like the Skywalkers, for
Yeah,
example. Just
that's
completely alienate itself from like the bigger parts of the universe and just be like,
well, yeah.
the whole thing of the bounty hunters. They have their own like bosses, criminals, like
Like
underground parts.
the
They have their own syndicate that doesn't have
mm.
to relate to Sith or Jedi.
Well, you see, the problem is that it's focusing on um things that nobody, the vast majority of Star Wars fans don't like uh, the new kind of trilogy that's coming out. And this show, while it could be set within the new trilogy, doesn't have to necessarily explore things within the new trilogy. Like it could just be its own thing. Um, but with something like the Mandalorian, like maybe like we can explore, like as you said, like just like the bounty hunter aspect, him dealing with like all the big bosses and stuff. But I just kind of hope that if they do explore the rise of the First Order, that it's just like a small component, like there's like hints of them coming, but that's it. It's not like, oh, and then the First Order came and they hired the Mandalorian, shoot all these dudes, and there's like a direct connection between this character and the plot itself.
or,
um
or like, because that's the thing. I think there's a lot of mystery, and I know there's a lot of extended canon. I guess because like there's a lot of things that are still mysterious. I guess between episode 6 and 7, I think there is a book. But like for example, like how did I guess Maz Kanata get the lightsaber or whatever, and why it's down there? It's like I got a feeling that maybe they'll try to connect all those little small things. They'll be like, oh well, it's from over there, and this happened because the Mandalorian, the bounty hunter got it, which is kind of like,
mhm.
I guess, the wrong thing that happened in the prequels. It just took away the mysterious part of things and made things more
Mhm.
connected and made the universe small, because it's like everything is connected by these little characters rather than
You
just
see,
making it different.
I didn't necessarily mind. There's nothing wrong with having that, like, because the thing is, like, the Mandalorian naturally is in the greater Star Wars universe, because Star Wars isn't like something that's not interconnected. Everything's connected in some capacity. Like the Mandalorian in and of themselves are directly tied to like the legacy of like Boba Fett and Jango Fett, and subsequently the connection with like all the like stormtroopers and things like that. So yeah, there's obviously naturally there's going to be a connection. It's just whether or not you want to actually heavily focus, because I think the mistake for Disney is that they're trying to focus too much on the new shit. We already broke. I already broke down, I think last week, about
Yeah, theory.
my theory as to why Disney has been trying to force all the new characters in it. And if you're interested, go watch it, because I'm actually I'm pretty like sure that that is really the reason why Disney is trying to force all this kind of new characters and stuff in it. But with something like The Mandalorian, they could have at least tried to focus on like, oh, like what is Mandalore and what is being a bounty hunter and all that kind of stuff. This is kind of like new territory that they can go into. They do explore like Mandalore a little bit in the Clone Wars, and I think they will be in the new series season that's coming out. But they can kind of keep it within their own scope. But yeah, look, I'm gonna probably still watch the series, which isn't gonna be a problem.
Yeah, it's
But
it's 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 not like
I
I'm
just
gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna watch the show.
I'm
Like
more hyped for this than episode 9.
yeah. To be honest, same here. Like I
Yeah,
know. Like of course
I think most people
of
are.
course I'm probably gonna watch episode 9. I just like be done, be finished with it, and then
Uh,
see what they did. But
I
yeah,
find it really funny that like the entire kind of premise for episode 8 talks about like kill the get rid of the past, kill it if you have to or whatever, and then like the new trailer for episode 9 is like 30 seconds or like a minute of like them showing the old movies. I kind of love that. I love how like there was this attempt to try and remove the legacy stuff, and then now they're just trying to hit you with like the nostalgia of hey, don't you remember when Star Wars was really good? Hey, watch this trailer which actually has zero well, I mean there's the whole stuff with like Darth Ray and stuff, but again, I'm not really confident that it's gonna actually be her being evil. Like I've read some rumors about what the new plot of the new movie is about. Like I liked one which was like, it's called The Rise of Skywalker because the goal will be to essentially like project the story of Luke Skywalker out into the galaxy.
yeah. So then
And
it's like relating to like that weird end segment of episode 8 where there's the little kid with the broom. It's like yeah, but why?
you know,
But why?
but on top of that, it's like that's what it is. Like like the First Order like might win, but then like now the galaxy knows all about like Luke Skywalker in this galaxies and other galaxies far far away. Like stuff like that. Which I kind of like. It does make it for like an interesting premise because it's like not just about like hey it's good guys versus bad guys. No, it's like the good guys know that they're gonna lose, but they're gonna give like the bad guys like one big like middle finger before they kind of get snuffed out. But I don't think that's where Disney's going. But yeah, like we'll see where episode 9 is going. I still haven't decided whether or not I'm leaning more over I'll wait to hear whether episode 9 is good or not, and if it's bad I won't watch it.
Mm.
And I'll just wait for the official release. If I hear something along the lines of, it's actually not that bad, then I'll watch it. That's what I'm not gonna watch it on like first first week. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
I need
I
to
think it burned.
I
I
need
think a
to
lot of people burn themselves with I guess the first week without like any reviews or like the reviews were very hyped up because as we mentioned before, like critics hyped it up, and then all of a sudden the audience is kind of like, yeah, actually no, we don't like this movie. So yeah, I guess there's a to and fro, and it's kind of like you at least take a week to dissect, and I guess that's gonna be like a news point of contention for the next like upcoming months, like around like end of October, November, December, when this movie's gonna come out. There'll be the whole like pre-selling tickets, are they low, etc., etc. That's gonna be a whole thing, very much like what the Solo movie was kind of doing.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, speaking of TV series, there's also news about how Netflix is gonna start airing some of its shows on a weekly basis, um, instead of doing like the whole releasing a show, in bulk, right? That we've kind of been used to
Which Netflix has
with.
basically invented, more or less, the whole
Yeah, yeah,
bulk
yeah.
format.
And I mean it's half the whole point about why people kind of enjoyed that Netflix format because they can just watch like a bunch of TV in one sitting. It's the whole point where it's like binging a show literally came from the Netflix style of release schedule. Now, for what's also been kind of clarified by Netflix is that the weekly release schedules isn't for all its shows. I think it's for some of the shows that it's going to be releasing on it. But like the whole like I think it's like the Great British Baking Show. Like I've
The
not
Great
heard
British Bake Off, that thing, yeah.
Bake Off. I don't know. I've never heard of this. I'm assuming it's just a cooking show in some capacity.
Yeah, pretty
But
much.
yeah, but I mean, like I couldn't imagine, them doing that to their series. Now, what I think might happen is it might be it's gonna be like at the moment, because I'm reading an article on Polygon about it. Like they said, hey, don't don't get your pitchforks up, like calm down. It's not going to be Stranger Things season 4 isn't going to come out in a weekly format, or something like that. However, I personally believe that they probably do want to move towards a weekly format because it forces people to keep using the app.
That
And
is
it
true. I
and it
think we
increases
yeah.
and it increases retention because we did actually talk about it with D23 last week, about how it's probably the tactic that Disney's going for to try and get people to keep using the service and keep feeling like, hey, maybe I do need to pay 600 or whatever a year for for Disney Plus or whatever. And I think it's the same thing with Netflix. Like, maybe, especially given that Netflix, sometimes you go on Netflix and it's like, there's nothing to watch. I kind of feel like that, even though there's heaps
It's
of
the
things.
burden of choice of like there's too much stuff, but I'm not feeling it, so no.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, and I think that's the direction probably Netflix wants to go to, but at the moment they kind of have to be like, oh no, like we're not going to be like that. All your favorite shows, are gonna come out and it's going to be, in a format that and you can binge watch it and stuff. Don't worry. But I think in the future, like it might become like that weekly release schedule, or the alternative thing is they might start doing like syndication deals with certain networks or something to release certain shows in a weekly format.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
there's a lot of strategies that they can do because, like, in Australia over here, they have some rights to certain TV shows that do come out weekly. Like, for example, Riverdale, which is a CW show, basically it comes out weekly on Netflix over here, which is very strange. I guess maybe in the US it's very different where everything just gets bulk done. I think as well, even like I think about a month or two ago we were talking about Netflix numbers have dropped, and it was basically they rose up and down because of Stranger Things season 3. I feel like portfolio wise, to look at share prices, they're probably looking at that looks really bad. So if we spread out the content out, it's kind of like an even number of people dropping on and off if it's a week by week basis. But even on top of that, another thing that I'm hoping they don't do, which a lot of programmers do when it comes to I guess premium and that whole type of stuff, is that they'll have, oh yeah, you can bulk watch the show. If you want to, you just have to pay an extra few dollars to do it. And I wouldn't put it past them to do that because Netflix already does
yeah,
a few things. For example, like
really?
Netflix original content,
Oh,
for example, is pretty much all shot in 4K, and then there is a setting that says, oh, if you want the ultra settings of
yeah,
HD, you
but
have to pay like an extra $1 for it. So there's a few
but
things
that
like
makes
that.
sense. Yeah, but that makes sense because I think something with Netflix, right? Like, the whole the whole um point of like the sales for it, like the packages, is like, oh, the most expensive package, you can watch it in like HD, you can watch it with like a million people, a million friends at the same time. You just have to pay like whatever, $20 or whatever, instead of if you pay like the basic package where you have to watch it at like 4p on a CRTV or something, like, it like, which is, by the way, like I basic, so like, I don't really need to watch shows at 4K. It's just one of those things. If you're one of those 4K people, well, I guess you just have to pay that extra amount. I don't think that it's really like gating people too much, because I think it's really not a demographic that they're trying to. It's like kind of like, people who listen to like FLAC music, right? Like, uh, and not like MP3s, because they're like the audiophiles who really like listening to music, so they're gonna listen to their stuff like through FLAC.
Mm.
I'm not an audiophile, so I don't listen to things because, yeah, like,
They take up too much
don't
stand
like.
space.
Yeah, that too. That is also part of it. But yeah, it's like, I don't necessarily watch things at 4K. I think the issue is also that, like, a lot of houses aren't like 4K ready. Not a lot of people have like a 4K TV. Like, we just got done with HD.
Yeah, and then
And
there was that
let alone
weird
other
like
things.
3 years of 3D. Remember?
Oh, 3D. Oh man, that failed. That failed hard. They tried to push 3D so hard. But yeah, and nobody and nobody bought it because it was just like, well, I don't really want to. And the thing is, especially here in Australia, TVs and stuff only get cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah, you
You
might
know,
as well just
like
wait
I
it out
mentioned.
until it becomes normalized.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't see 4K being like the standard until like everything starts being 4K, and it also becomes um more easily accessible. And by then, people are already probably dealing with like 8K is the thing.
Yeah, but
the
okay, just yeah, we don't need for 8K. I don't think, but
well, maybe we do, right? Maybe we do need that kind of fidelity when I'm watching, I don't know, shows on Netflix. But I mean, that's where it's the direction it's going to go. The thing with me is like, yeah, they could kind of do. I don't think so. I think Netflix would lose a lot of good faith if they do something like, oh, if you want to watch this show now, you have to pay an extra dollar now. Like, I don't. The thing is, it would work, but I think it's gonna have a lot of people have a big backlash for it, and then like Hulu or Amazon or whatever will swoop in, and it's gonna be like that, Microsoft versus Sony thing, where like, Amazon and or them will make fun of Netflix for making such a stupid move, like making people pay to watch a show like that, in that format, because I
we
think
we are
we'd
we
lose a
ba-
lot
we
of good faith.
basically are in the middle of the stream wars. So it's kind of like everyone's trying to compete for
Yeah,
your dollars and
and
money. So it's
and it's
gonna
only getting more.
until there's only like one or two left. That's when they can start doing that stuff, and then the other person will follow, and then that will be it.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's already become a thing where people talk about, yeah, like, I'm subscribed to so many things. It's almost like I have cable. So it's very much a thing that it will be something that will need to be addressed in the future, going forward for Netflix. But speaking of Netflix, I've recently finished finished binging. I couldn't binge it all because I don't know, it felt longer than usual, but I watched all of 13 Reasons Why season 3. Um, Now, we were talking last week, what we should watch or what we should try and review. How far into the show did you get, Jack?
I think I got about 4 to 5 episodes in.
Yeah.
I watched
Okay.
another show that we'll be talking about later, but yeah, I kind of watched a bit of it. I think in general, I'm like, yeah, okay, and then watch something else, I guess, for my time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, honestly, like, I don't blame you, because this season of 13 Reasons Why was awful. Um, I think it's technically a better season than season 2, if that makes sense. But like,
Like, in what regard? Like, as in like structure or like just
yeah,
better plot?
I think structure. Yeah, not necessarily the plot. I think structurally, yeah, even though the structure isn't that good either. But I kind of like, what I recently found out, and I don't know if we talked about this when we were reviewing season 2. But the whole concept, the ending of season 2 was actually supposed to end with the school shooting. It wasn't supposed to be Clay stopping, um, you know, what's his face from shooting up the school. Yeah, Tyler. Like, he was actually supposed to shoot up the school, and that was actually supposed to be like the end of season 2 of 13 Reasons
And
Why.
then season
Which
3 starts with like a cold opening, and it's like who died and who lived. I think if that
I
was
think
the
that would
case,
have been way
yeah,
better,
yeah,
way
absolutely.
way better.
But
Because
but obviously, I think what during that time there was the Parkland shooting or whatever it is, and I feel
dude,
like that's when they
yeah, but
changed it.
that's. I mean, I was reading online that apparently American Horror Story or whatever did school shootings like in their season. So it's like, you know, it like it doesn't really matter. Like, especially in America, there's going to be another school shooting. Like, no offense, Americans,
It's
there's
just
probably
gonna
going to be
happen.
another school shooting. Um, and you know, like having like the whole thing about 13 Reasons Why was like, oh, like it's kind of edgy because they're talking about suicide, right? So like, why couldn't it be, oh, we're being edgy by talking about the ramifications and the kind of stuff that happens with school shootings? Like, why wouldn't that be a good conversation to talk about what's going on? You can talk about gun laws, or you can talk about this. And it's like, why, there's a lot of topics that you can kind of bring up, with, kind of reminds me of that episode of Arrow where they have the gun control episode where, you have both of the sides talk about, hey, no, this is why we need to have gun control. And then the other side talk about, no, like, gun control will be bad. Like, sorry, extensive gun control will be bad because of X, Y, and Z. Like it'd be a good place to kind of do a conversation about it,
Mm.
but they don't do it. What this season kind of and well, Don, do you mind if I spoil what kind of happens? Like, if this is like a bit of a spoiler review. Sorry for the audience, but I think it's kind of relevant in
No,
terms
no,
of
yeah,
like
yeah, go for
my
it. Because
issues.
because obviously my understanding is like it's pretty much end of second episode that the Bryce guy gets killed, and the whole thing is like the mystery of like who killed Bryce.
Because he goes missing, and essentially, people are kind of oh well, I mean, who killed him, right? Like, things like that.
And obviously
Um,
they expect the school shooter, the
yeah,
ex
yeah.
school shooter that didn't.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, the thing is, this is the entire format of the series, which, by the way, is done through the introduction of the most annoyingest character in the whole show, which is Arnie. She's essentially a exchange an exchange student.
see, the
No,
change
she's
from the
no,
UK.
yeah.
Yeah,
She's got the most uh like intricate background as to why she's in the show. Essentially, she's her mother's from Somalia who moved to the UK where she was born, and then she only stayed in the UK for 10 years before moving to America. And so she has a British, and that's the reason why she has a British accent. And it's really jarring because it's very obvious that she has this British like accent, but it doesn't really, like, her background doesn't really play to like the plot in any capacity other than the fact that her mother's really like strict and like doesn't let her go out and stuff. But that's not something that's specifically um something that would need a British background for. I just felt like, and the whole season doesn't really explain like, oh, okay, why does her being British, like, it just seemed like they
well
just
that's
had
the.
her
I feel like they
be British
shoehorned her
just for
in
the
100% because the cast of characters that they have in 13 Reasons Why is pretty big. Already the characters that they have, and some of them do blend with each other, especially going from like season 2, which I like what was like last year, to season 3. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that character and that person doing that thing. It's like they have already so many characters, and I'm trying to remember who they all are. And then
yeah.
we've got like this introduction of a new character that I guess is the audience surrogate because
Look,
they got rid of
well,
the obviously
well,
from
yeah,
because
well,
someone
well,
to relay things to the audience about like what's going on, I
well,
guess.
the issue is they killed off like the character that has exactly her same personality, which is Hannah Baker during season 1. She's around for season 2, but as a figment of
Clay's
Clay
imagination.
Jensen's imagination, or his like kind of anxieties and stuff like that. But Annie is essentially like Hannah, like with all the quirkiness and all that, but like to 11, right? Because what she's like has the ability, she has like the uncanny ability to know exactly what people are thinking, and she can analyze people, and she's like, her ability to psychoanalyze the situation and people are just like top notch. Like, every time she's talking to someone new or something, she just knows exactly what they're thinking about, and they'll get surprised, like, what? How do you know that?
How do
Oh,
you
we should
know
be
me
best.
as so intimately? I guess you're like one of my new best friends now.
Yeah,
That's
this
why.
is
That's
and
why I said she feels
so
very shoehorned in.
well, yeah, because she's 100% a Mary Sue character. Like, I feel like I say that a lot with shows these days. When it comes to like characters that there's like a predominantly female character in it. But I mean, like, there are other characters in the show who are female who don't have the characteristics that Arnie does. Like, she's literally like brand new character. Everyone loves her. Doesn't fail at anything she does. Even her whole plan, she actually orchestrates the plan that saves everybody in the end. So it's kind
So
of
she
like
comes out of nowhere. If she didn't arrive at the school, stuff would have
everybody would be
gone
fine.
down.
Yeah, I mean, look at Jessica Davis. Like, she's a good example of a character who, she's a sexual assault victim, a rape victim, and she has a lot of like insecurities and problems that she kind of sorts out throughout the season. But then she also has her redeeming features as well. Annie kind of doesn't have any irredeemable, like, bad features other than the fact that she's a liar, because later in the series, and you kind of get that when you early watch when you watch the show earlier, because she doesn't tell everybody the whole truth, but like later on in the season, like it's revealed that because essentially her family is living with Bryce Walker's parents, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Bryce, and essentially she ends up getting in to a sexual relationship with Bryce, but hides that fact from Clay, who obviously does have a romantic interest in Arnie. It kind of has a lot of like, uh, some dejection because it's like, well, she knows that this guy is like a rapist. But then, throughout the whole season, like they do this thing where they are trying to redeem Bryce Walker, which I think is a very interesting direction for the show to go down because again, it shows that like bad people can be good. Like it's not
And
just
even then, but like, yeah, very much the framing of the first season is pretty much he's an asshole, and I think,
he's an
and
asshole
I
and
think
he's
like even like
irredeemable.
midway through like season 2, it did try to humanize him quite a bit of like showing like I guess
But
more
but
of the
even but
stuff with like him and Hannah Baker, and it's kind of like, oh, like Hannah did some stuff as well, and she
well they
isn't the
were well,
100% innocent as she framed it to be.
yeah, but but season two is all like a bit of a giant retcon to the background and like people my recommendation if you're gonna watch 13 Reasons Why, just watch the first season and just assume that it kind of finishes without the Alex guy shooting himself in the head, and then that's like then you don't have to watch any more of this show, right? Because that's the big cliffhanger hanger at the end of season one. Just
Mm.
assume that that doesn't happen. Really sorry if you haven't watched it, but I'm just saying it's not worth pursuing any further other than the 13 sorry the first season, right? But
I
yeah,
think it is going
even
to
if
end after the season after
fourth,
this one, so.
yeah, and I don't know if I'll watch the next one because I don't know. It's all because essentially the plot of this season is trying to find out who killed Bryce Walker, and essentially the structure of it is, oh, Clay finds out that someone might have been involved uh, in
In the
had
murder, so
contact.
then he goes and
No,
investigates,
well, not
find out
even
it
no no
isn't that person.
incorrect. So it's Clay Jensen finds out that somebody um someone among his friends or something did like didn't tell the truth or lied about something, and that may line up with something that may have been involved with Bryce Walker's death. So it's not even that he thinks they that there's definitely something they did that ended up with his death. It's like, oh, maybe he killed him. That's it. It's just like a assumption, and this whole thing is like a bunch of teenagers and Arnie basically enabling Clay's because they kind of touch on it a little bit that like, oh, maybe Clay has like these mental health issue where like he I don't know, like I think in the first
Well,
season it's
yeah,
kind of cute because it's like again it's like him kind of having like this anxiety listening to the tapes about Hannah Baker, this girl that he loved, and he actually can't listen to the tapes and like all in because everybody like listened to it in all in one. It took him like 13 episodes to listen, and so that made sense in the serial format where it doesn't really work as well in this because it literally is, oh, he finds out someone lied, maybe they lied because they had something to do with Bryce Walker's murder. He confronts them, it turns out that they're not involved with the murder, and this has been like, a red herring, and then a cliffhanger at the end of the episode, which makes you think it's someone else who is the next target for the next episode. Like that's literally the format for this entire series. It's like a who done it, but they're all teenagers, but they're somehow more competent than the police.
yeah, they always
Um,
do something like that. But my whole thing was kind of and I think I remember. I think they maybe touched on it in season 2, but it was like a whole
mm,
thing of like kind of the Clay character is almost like he likes looking for trouble and trying to help people. And try to
yeah,
solve things, because it's just like
they
he's got
touch
the
on
whole
that.
Hannah
Yeah.
Baker situation, and then season 2 he's got some like he's trying to deal with like helping I forgot the kid with the crutches, the other guy out, and then very much in
Alex,
this
yeah.
season it's very much helping the I forgot his name, but the kid who was about to shoot up the school. It's like him
Yeah,
being like
Tyler.
he's like, I have to be someone who does something,
I find it funny how they couldn't um do a school shooting, but like everybody's cool with this guy who almost shot up a school. Like this is the thing that I don't understand at all. Like there seems to be a very big disconnect with like how reality is in the show. Obviously it's done for a dramatic intent, but you know, if you can't believe something, like there's like a you know, your a level of disbelief has to be proportionate to what's going on. Like if you have like, lightsabers and laser beam shooting, you can kind of like, lower your expectations. But when you're trying to do a format that's supposed to emulate or simulate real life, you kind of think of it as like this wouldn't fly in real life. Like it's kind of funny because I think like one of the jocks, I think his name's Zach. He's kind of on crutches this season. And yeah, like he seems to be the most level-headed guy despite not being around a lot. He's like, yeah, we should call the police. And a lot of this stuff is like, oh no, we got to keep everything a secret. And it's like that big trope where it's like, by having everybody lie, it only makes things worse. And yeah, it's just like if you just told them, but if like you had told them, none of this drama. And so a lot of this season kind of feels like filler. But the good components, like despite me kind of not liking the Tyler, like them redeeming a school shooter, like having like them kind of focusing on like Tyler's relationship and kind of dealing with you know being a sexual abuse victim, and having to like kind of come out about it. That was kind of good because obviously it's like kind of dealing with a different component of like sexual abuse, like male sexual abuse. There's like the stuff with Alex kind of sorry, not Alex. Oh well, yeah, actually Alex, and I guess I'm forgetting the name now, but essentially the kind of Justin, that's his name. He's kind of like the jock guy who starts like living with Clay. Like they have like drug problems, like taking steroids and stuff like that. Like yeah, obviously they're all kind of dealing with it, but all of this stuff is like put in, and it all seems to be fluff, just to kind of make you think that it's something to do with the main plot, but it really doesn't. And when you kind of like step back and you kind of see what is actually involved in the death of Bryce Walker, it's like, oh, okay, so all the stuff that we've been talking about, not relevant at all. Okay. So it's just like kind of faux character development whereas like, in the first season, like every single episode obviously is related to a tape about the reason why Hannah Baker committed suicide. In season 2, like, you find out more about how she had a relationship with Zach, the guy that I mentioned, and they were in like a sexual relationship during like the summer, but like for some reason the fact that they kind of canceled that relationship like didn't contribute to her committing suicide really doesn't make sense like in the timeline of
Yeah, it was
things.
just a weird added thing, I felt like.
No, like it's fine. Like obviously it kind of explores the deep lore of 13 Reasons Why.
The lore of 13 Reasons Why.
But the problem is like why wasn't that on the tape? It like why wasn't it on his section of the tape? Like oh like I forget why he was on the tape specifically. But it's like oh like that would have been a component. It's like oh we had like a summer tryst for like for XY, and then you did this to me that made me feel like a piece of shit, and this is why I wanted to kill myself. Like that's what would have been better if you actually like if the people did the right. But I think like and like you said, like yes, it's very true that like they try and frame like Clay to be like he has a bit of a savior complex, right? Like he wants to be like saving people, and they kind of talk about that as well. Like the Ani girl kind of is like, oh, all you want to do is like be the hero and save people, but like stuff like that. But I don't know. I think it kind of takes away from like obviously like it is very simple to have like Clay is like a one-dimensional character, and they kind of talk about it in the show, like oh, making Clay like a one-dimensional character where he's always good, right? But like I think even in the first season they kind of show that he isn't like a wholly good person. He's just someone who tries to be. Whereas like in season 3, they try and chastise him and make him bad, or look bad for wanting to do the good thing, which I think I don't know, it's sending the wrong message. I think, especially given that I think this show is very very popular among like the teen demographic. I've just been watching because I've just kind of been because I watched season 1 and I was hoping it might have gotten better. It hasn't. The other thing that kind of is pretty contradicting is like Tony. who, by the way, is still a really cool character in this, consistently very, very cool. His family gets deported by ICE. But the one confusing thing is, I'm pretty sure in the first season they mentioned that they were from Puerto Rico, um, and that's a reason, and that's within like the American jurisdiction. So if you're from Puerto Rico, you're like an American citizen, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, for any of our American listeners, please correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems like a contradiction, like as to why his family, like they suddenly became Mexican and then they deported them.
It's
Like
like,
that's what it seems
yeah,
like to
yeah.
me,
Well,
right? It's,
they probably did it because, like, as I mentioned before, the cast of 13 Reasons Why. There's a lot of characters, and I guess with a lot of them have their own problems, and I guess he really didn't have that many problems, really. Like, I think he had,
Tony.
yeah, he had some,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Tony had some kind of problems maybe in the first season, kind of being like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, Hannah Baker was my friend and yada, but he really didn't have much to add. So I feel
Yeah,
like,
yeah. He was just kind of like
so I feel like
he was like
writers
the
are kind of like, what do we do with this character? Instead of him just being like a secondary kind of clay to help him out.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll just add a drama for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like again they're kind of retconning things just to kind of add that drama aspect
The
to
extra
it.
spice.
But I mean, it's not a bad storyline. I guess my only problem is like I don't know if you're illegally in a country like I'm not really surprised like that the government would want to try and kick you out. I think the thing is the thing that they did really good about it though is like how it connected to the story because essentially because Tony had to in season two go up on the stand and kind of give like in
Testify.
front of
Yep.
court testify. Yeah, it kind of led to because they lost the case, Bryce's dad went and like tried to like dig up secrets about everyone and then called even though he was actually on Bryce's side. That's the one thing that doesn't make sense. Like he was actually trying to help Bryce, but then his dad just ended up calling ICE on his family anyways. That kind of is a little bit like that doesn't make much sense. Like wouldn't you want to just hurt other people? But hey, I don't know.
Writing.
It's all kind of weird. Yeah, writing, bad writing at that. But essentially, what it kind of comes down to, you have the entire season kind of working out to be like, Bryce is trying to be a better person, a good person, failing at it, trying to get better, etc. And then essentially he gets his ass kicked by Zach because essentially during like the football game, um, uh, Bryce basically broke his leg and ended Zach's like football career. Zach beat the shit out of him, left him for dead. But then like Alex and um, I want to say Jessica. Sorry, Jessica. Jessica actually meet him there because they were supposed to meet up. And in the moment when Alex was trying to help Bryce like was saying that he was going to kill Zach, and then Alex threw him into the water and killed him, and that's the reason why he died. And then the end of the show is about how the Arnie chick basically coordinated along with Alex's dad to lie and say someone else killed Bryce. So the whole show ended up being like the new season of How to Get Away with Murder, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch, but that's what it ended up being. And to me, it's just like, oh, okay, so everybody's complicit with the murder of here's the thing: they now have a school shooter among their midst, and now they also have somebody who killed someone.
Yeah,
Um,
this is very much turning it a very much like a heightened reality show almost. Like it doesn't
yeah,
feel
it's
as grounded. Like cause it just depends on I guess the type of show you kind of want to frame it, and it very much feels like before it used to talk about stuff. It used to be a little bit more real. Now, as you mentioned, this it kind of feels very much like as mentioned heightened reality because it does remind me of, like for example, a show that kind of touched very much on suicide and it has school shootings in it is the Heather's TV show that came out last year. But that was very much on. It was cartoony satire. It was very much in that vein,
approach to
and
it.
very much like 13 Reasons Why was very much the grounded approach of like, no, we're taking this very seriously. So now I guess they're switching it up, making it more like, I guess, interesting. I guess by engaging people more, having this mystery part, and like, oh, who's gonna get
It's
found
because they're
out type
running.
of
It's
thing.
it's becoming it's becoming more like Riverdale, but I kind of expect Riverdale to be about like a murder mystery because that's essentially what the first season is about. It's about like somebody being killed and trying to find out who did it, and then the next season is more people are getting killed. Like obviously it's not anything like the Archie comics, because I've been reading them still, and it's not like that. Although there are mysteries, it's not like, people dying left and right. Yeah, it is definitely a thing where they're like running out of characters, and they need to, and they've been adding new ones. Thing is, what was really funny is like they had characters, but then they didn't use them. Like I think it's kind of explained that they graduated. There was like another black guy who was like on the football team who was like going to become like a go to like a rich high school or something like that. There was like a black cheerleader, like she's not in it. Like, but I mean, like they could have used those characters for this season rather than like, I don't know, having this Arnie chick in or something like that. I don't know. I just really don't like it. She was just really bad and made the show like jarring to watch. So I don't necessarily blame anyone who couldn't get to the final episode for this season. It's very much doesn't know when to quit while it's ahead. And I guess like it's one of those things where, Netflix want to make shows to get people to watch like every season or whatever. But yeah, season 1 is all you need to watch for certain reasons why. It's the only one that's relevant and it's the only one that's any good. So yeah, that's my review of 13 Reasons Why. But while I am criticizing Netflix for that, what I will be praising Netflix for is the new Dave Chappelle Netflix special, Sticks and Stones.
Because sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
And that is the theme of the actual the set that he was doing. Like it's very much a he's out there to offend people, and that's kind of like Dave Chappelle's bit to begin with. Like I used to watch Dave Chappelle on SBS here in Australia, and I loved that show. It was some of the funniest shit I ever watched, and it kind of like was the kind of comedy that like I enjoyed, and I kind of at least tried to emulate in some capacity. And Sticks and Stones is like it's good, it's really really good. But like there's been a lot of controversy, like it's gotten like really bad ratings on like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. I think it was like 33% or something like that. Like,
well, but I think
critics.
very early on it was like literally 0%. But I think it's actually gone down to like I think it is like 13% or something.
13.
Like it is very it is very low.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, but then like the audience review is 99%, right? It's something like that. Which obviously isn't like that surprising because like it's going to be just a lot of people kind of coming on and being like, hey, yeah, no, this is really funny. People are like the critics are kind of being too harsh or whatever. It's going to be reviews like that for sure. But like honestly, like I don't think it's as bad as like the critics are saying. Yeah, it's currently saying 33 on Rotten. So I don't know, like I wouldn't say it's like 100%, but it's a very, very, very good set by Dave. It's more stuff about him kind of like, talking about the cultural zeitgeist. Like, he wasn't afraid to kind of talk about like the whole Bill Cosby situation. And like, in this special, like, he's talking about Michael Jackson, he's talking about R. Kelly, he's talking about gun control, he's talking about like LGBT. So yeah, obviously it's gonna have stuff that offends people, but he frames it in a way that's hilarious. So if you haven't seen Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones, watch it on Netflix, and it also has like a 20-minute epilogue, which is like extra content. So after you finish the original series, just like stick around to the end and you can kind of like click on to like the epilogue and just watch that too, because that's also really good. So yeah, Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones, really, really dope.
Yeah, I have heard from some people like because I always like Dave Chappelle stuff. Like obviously my favorite thing is the whole Rick James skit. That was always my favorite. Yep. That's always my favorite.
Really great skit.
But yeah, and yeah, I've enjoyed. I think the last special he did in Netflix, the two ones that he did, that was done I think like 3 or 4 years ago. I really enjoyed those ones as well. And it's like I'm a big comedy person. I feel like comedy's kind of suffered. I don't really feel like there's nothing that interesting. Like Chris Rock basically isn't the same Chris Rock as he is anymore, and he doesn't really perform. A lot of the new people, I don't know, they don't really have like a certain thing about them. Like sometimes you see certain people for their whole shtick, and their whole thing, or like and Louis C.K. that I've always really enjoyed him, but he's pretty much disappeared off the map.
Because of the whole Me Too stuff,
situation.
But I mean, I think the biggest comedian probably would be Kevin Hart. And
Yeah.
even he, like at the moment, like, and even he's like obviously got himself in some hot water, which obviously they talk about as well, in this special. I think like Dave Chappelle's, at the top of his game, and he continues to do really, really well and be hilarious, while doing so,
Mm.
even after so long. So yeah, I look forward to more of the Netflix specials. Or I don't know, how long he's. I wonder how much he makes from like each special. I'm pretty sure his last two special was like in the millions, right? Like a couple of million for just having that stuff straight on Netflix. So yeah, if he keeps putting out this stuff, I'm gonna keep watching it.
Mm.
That's just how it is.
That's the pretty much the big moral of the story on that one. Um, Moving on to something that I've actually been watching is Angel Has Fallen. I watched it in the cinemas. This is the third film, I guess, in the Fallen series, which I can't believe it's a series, but it's
Is it a
yeah.
wait? It's a series?
Yes, because the first one was Olympus Has Fallen. The second one is London Has Fallen, and this one is Angel Has Fallen. Um,
Oh,
and it's
okay,
all got
right.
Gerard Butler in it. And this was, I guess the original one, I guess, is very interesting because it came out the exact same time, about 2 months,
As another movie, right?
as White House Down, with Channing Tatum. It's basically the exact same premise. Like obviously the White House gets taken over by terrorists, and basically it's up to the guy to save the day. But that one kind of failed straight away. I think it had Jamie Lee Foxx as the president, and Channing Tatum. And now this has kind of moved into, I guess this is like our modern version of like maybe Taken, in a sense, because all three of them, you've even got someone like Morgan Freeman in it as well. So it's very, it's very
Who's
much,
Morgan Freeman in the?
he's the
Is
president.
he the president? Oh,
Yeah.
you see, that's the reason. That's the reason why Olympus Has Fallen is done better. Is because it's got
It's
him
got
in it.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, exactly. He's got the much bigger star power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Absolutely, and yeah, I guess the third one is kind of like obviously the series revolves around, I get, falling things. So Olympus is the White House. The second one is London Has Fallen because there was a nuke that was detonated in London, and the third one, I guess, is kind of like a talking about the roots of the character, Gerard Butler's character, who's Mike Banning, and Angel Has Fallen is him because he's kind of like the main bodyguard for the president, and the main plot of the thing is he gets obviously accused of and framed of trying to attempted murder of the president, to try to kill the president, and he's basically on the run by the FBI, trying to prove his innocence. So it's very much kind of in the same thing of The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. It's kind of got that feeling to it where it's going back to those old grassroots, not having the help of the people that you've kind of worked with. And yeah, I think it's to be honest, the movie is very much standard affair of action movies. The action is okay, and it's shot like in a, I guess, a presentable manner, but it doesn't really do much things interesting with it. Gerard Butler's playing Gerard Butler. These characters are more or less typecast. They do get Danny Houston as the main bad guy, and it's not really a spoiler because it's pretty obvious from the first time you see his face in the movie. He's the bad guy.
He's just got the bad guy face.
Yeah, he's got the bad guy face. He's the bad guy in Wonder Woman. That guy.
Oh, okay, right. Got
Yeah,
it.
so yeah, you're just like, yeah, obviously you're the bad guy, like, straight away. So I feel like the mystery and it's not trying to be complex at all in this movie, and I feel like this is some of the stuff that I kind of enjoy, even though it's kind of like very schlocky. It is kind of what it is, some okay action. It does have some cool bits where Gerard Butler's character does meet his dad, who used to serve in the army, and he's basically gone off grid, and he's like very paranoid about everyone spying on him. And he does some really cool, interesting stuff, and it's very funny because he has these explosives and he just lets everything rip. I like that character quite as well. There is one addition to the cast that is very weird in this movie, and it's like a side plot. Is that this the FBI agent that tries to, I guess, that is actively trying to hunt down Gerard Butler's character is played by Jada Pinkett Smith, out of all people, and it's just this random thing, and she's just in there being like, we're gonna find him and gonna catch him and things like that. It's so weird because like the character just comes in, does her thing, and then leaves, kind of pretty much. So
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
is it just weird because like her character just kind of comes out of nowhere? Is that why it's weird?
kind of, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like it's Jada Pinkett Smith, and you're like, okay, but why did you choose this movie to be like in the movie for like under like 20 minutes and leave? But hey, maybe
Hey,
she
it's probably a
got
good gig. I mean, look, I just looked up some of the kind of the budget for like these movies because it's a really good point because like I had heard of Olympus Has Fallen and it just didn't kind of come to me that, oh, this is a series, right? Like a movie series. Yeah, London Has Fallen. I did not hear of this movie at all.
yeah.
But yeah, like if you look at like Olympus Has Fallen, it was made with a budget of 70 million and made 170 million. London Has Fallen, 60 million and made 205 million, and Angel Has Fallen, 40 million, only made 70 million. So it is it's the one that's got the least amount of funding, but it's also the one that has done the worst. I guess like in terms of, have you watched the other movies?
Yes, I've watched all the movies, and I feel like it's kind of like I don't know, because I feel like obviously when it did come out, it was pretty much in a heated slot. It came out with Tarantino's movie as well, pretty much around the same time, as well as Hobbs and Shaw, which is, I guess, it kind of tingles the same niche of it. But that's the thing. I feel like there isn't many movies like this out there where it's kind of middling budget. Like anything below under 100 million is pretty, like, you never really see that these days. Even like the first Iron Man was made by, I think, 80 million, and that was seen as like very small budget. So like, and that's the thing. It doesn't really cut. You don't really see the corners being cut out that much because you don't really need that big of a budget when it comes to these types of movies. And that's the thing. I don't mind these types of movies. I feel like there's kind of a market for them. And
definitely. I mean, if you look at something like as you said, something like Hobbs and Shaw, right? Like it was made with a budget of 200 million. Obviously there's Hollywood accounting involved in that, but it made 700 million. So like, yeah, there is definitely a case for there being like films that can be getting that niche. It's like whether or not it's going to be whatever Olympus is fallen or Zeus has fallen or whatever they're going to call the next one. But yeah, overall, would you recommend people to go and watch this movie?
That's the thing. I feel like this movie is a lot better than London Has Fallen. The second movie in the franchise is not good. I do not like that movie, especially the action. I've always said it many times before. I hate shaky cam action, and it pretty much is the main culprit of that. And it's very like up close quarters. Like they try to do the Jason Bourne thing, but only certain like directors can do that, and it's like really understanding what it actually is about. But yeah, this one's pretty much a lot better than the second one. The first one's still obviously the best one. But yeah, I do enjoy these characters. I do enjoy that, like, they do something a little bit more interesting with the character, Gerard Butler's character, Mike Banning, because before he was just a everyday superhero type of guy. In this one, he's kind of hiding secrets in regards to his health. He's getting older. He's got amnesia. He's got a lot of these types of problems where he can't sleep properly and things like that. And it's like, it's giving, I guess, humanizing the character a little bit more, and kind of giving him more to play with aside from just being normal action guy. So that's why it's like I feel like this one is a lot better than the second one. I do say go ahead and watch the series, because I feel like it does kind of hold up, especially in comparison to something like a Taken, where, like, for example, Taken 1 seems to be the only real good one, and 2 and 3 were pretty bad. And that's the thing. It's like these types of movies come and go. So I think overall, I feel like I enjoyed my time with Angel Has Fallen. It just has unique things, and it very much is. I guess it's one of those movies that, like, you put on the background when, like, I don't know, or like if it's on Netflix and you can't really find anything and you just want to put something there. It's pretty much one of those types of movies. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. I think it is pretty entertaining, especially for what it is, I guess.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. But speaking of, like, films that have like these new action stars, I actually finally got around to watching John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. It's actually really funny because like I remember I think earlier in this year, like I've had I think even yourself, Don, were just telling me you gotta watch John Wick. You're gonna love John Wick. And I really do love the first film. First film, very, very good. Sets the tone. Keanu's really great in it. I was kind of disappointed with John Wick Chapter 2. Like, it's not as good. Like, it's got a few interesting set pieces, and we're kind of dealing with him like, oh, he's kind of pulled back in the game, and oh, like he has to kind of kill people again. But ultimately, I feel like it's not as interesting, but it does set up for a good film, which is John Wick Chapter 3. Now, just something that I want to point out because just looking it up, the first film was made for 20 million to 30 million, and it made 88 million back.
Mm-hmm.
The second film was made for 40 million, and got back 171 million. And then John Wick Chapter 3 was made for 75 million and made 321 million.
Yeah,
So
so it's basically
um,
the inverse. It's kind of very much
it's kind of
almost
doing,
like it is on the incline. Like
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
more and more people know about John Wick because, as mentioned before, like to you, like I think the first one was very much like, oh, people would like it's like a niche thing, like, oh man, like John Wick. And then like the second one, it kind of spread on, and I think like third one, I feel like very very much this is Keanu's year. It pretty much is, it's kind of blown up to the mainstream, and I think a lot of people know John Wick now, and it's gonna be, I feel like John Wick already as a character is pretty much up there. That you would say of something like The Man with No Name in, like, I don't know, Good and Bad the Ugly series, or
yeah,
Dirty
yeah.
Harry. Like he's in that level now. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd even argue more people would know nowadays who John Wick is over who, like, classic characters like you've mentioned are. Because, obviously because it's in the public zeitgeist, but also the fact that it's been doing really well. And what this movie does really well is kind of, once again, kind of set up more about the world of John Wick, and about like the like the Continental and the High Table. So essentially, after the events of um, uh, John Wick 2, where John Wick kind of kills a person within the Continental, a Continental being a kind of a neutral ground for assassins and their ilk. Like, there isn't to it's kind of like a known fact you can't kill someone in these establishments, and John Wick does in order to kind of get back at the guy who kind of betrayed him in the second movie. Subsequently, that means he's excommunicated, or excommunicado. I do love how like everybody kind of, instead of saying excommunicated, they just specifically say excommunicado. I do kind of like that. That
Yeah,
it's
I
just
think
like
like
a
that. I think that's why a lot of people do like the John Wick series, is because it has these like certain terminologies where like the characters in the world just do certain things, and it's just like, yeah, cool,
behave certain ways,
yeah.
yeah. And it's just the thing, and so it does add a lot of weight. Like, when somebody hears of John Wick, they're like, there's like respect there. Like, people know who John Wick is. They know kind of the tale. Like, even like probably the one of the coolest things that happens at the beginning of this film is when he has to fight this like really tall, like lanky dude, and he kind of beats his ass with a book and kills him with it. It's absolutely dope. It's one of the coolest things that happens.
Yeah, and it's
And
like
really sets the tone.
especially with that scene, because it's pretty much the first kill. It is I guess it sets the tone for the movie, but not only that, but it's like it just I guess it just shows, like, I really like the sound design of this movie, especially with the guns, how things shoot, but especially in that particular scene, I do remember there's like certain crunching sounds
Mhm.
that would never leave my mind.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It does it. That's what I'm saying. Any weapon becomes a weapon in the hands of sorry, any object becomes a weapon in the hands of John Wick. It is really funny because I think like later on he back to, I think, his like kind of family, which is like kind of the Roman, or no, Romania, or like kind of the Romanian mafia or whatever it may be. And like he kind of gives like his weapons and his keys and something, and they're like, and the belt, and so he takes off the belt, and I kind of didn't realize why until like later on. Then I remembered, oh yeah, he like uses his belt as a weapon like in the other movies before, so that's probably the
And
reason
he
why.
does in the later on in this movie as
And
well.
later on in this movie, exactly, it's he's kind of like, if he can't like get an object to use as a weapon, he'll just take off his belt. Is like a really angry dad, like if he becomes a dad like in this film, like it would be like crazy. But yeah, like there's a lot of kind of stuff regarding like now all these assassins are trying to kill him, from like under the request of the High Table. I think has like a 14 or $15 million like bounty or something. And he kind of works to get a trip to like Morocco, and where you meet another character who I think they're called blood debts, right? If I'm not mistaken, like these kind of if you help someone, you kind of you can call upon them later, and they'll do like they'll have to like pay off their debt,
Yeah, it's like a one
right?
of Final Fantasy summon. It's like you only get me one time. Make it count.
Yeah, yeah, and that we get to see who this person is, and it's Halle Berry. And she's got like two dogs, and like everything goes really well until, the person that they were talking to shoots her dog, and then everything just goes to hell. I I kind of like that they did they did the whole thing about like, oh, it's like got dogs again. I kind of found that scene kind of dragged on for a little bit too long, because like it was the same gimmick. It would be like, oh yeah, cool, like John Wick kills the guy, and then Halle Berry's thing is like, oh, she uses her dogs to help like incapacitate her targets, and then she shoots them. Whereas like I kind of liked earlier in the film when John Wick's running away, because he's kind of transitioning, like he goes from like a library, and then he has to go into like a stable of some kind, and he uses like the horses to kill like some of his pursuers by making him like back kick them and like just like take him out, and then like later he's on like a motorcycle. Like there's all these set pieces, whereas I think the when they were in Casablanca, kind of dealing with in Morocco,
Mm.
dealing with it, like it kind of like the gimmick kind of got old and stale pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it is just mainly because of maybe because it's Halle Berry. So like she does a pretty good job, especially being an
Oh,
action
I think
star
she's fine. She's great
in
in
her
this.
age. But I feel like very much like Keanu Reeves is very versatile. Of like, yeah, man, we're gonna get you on like a bike. We're gonna make you do all this crazy shit.
Mm.
And it's just like, and I guess the whole thing of like Halle Berry's character is like, yeah, you got killer dogs,
Yeah.
but they do use them in unique and interesting ways. Just that, yeah, I think
Mm. That I
they
think
do
I
use
think
them
if it
as
was a
much as
little bit
possible.
Yeah, I think if it was like a little bit shorter, it'd be a lot more like kind of palatable, because I was just kind of waiting for them to kind of, all right, yeah, we get it. Okay, you're using the dogs again. But and then it's really funny. John Wick almost became this kind of like a fantasy fairy tale where like the guy who they talked to is like, oh, you have to like go out into the desert and walk following like the stars of Osiris or something like that, and when you get tired, you have to walk more, and then he'll find you or something, right? Because he's trying to find the leader of, the High Table, to give him a second, quote unquote, second chance to be a good boy again. And it happens, and he does it. It's almost like you're watching it, but it's like a modern myth with these guys like kind of acting like like the almost like the League of Assassins, right? That's essentially what they are
Mhm.
in this world. Yeah, and then he gets kind of sent to go kill like his former friend, and there's like a big fight in the Continental, because there's like these Japanese dudes who are like trying to kill him as well. It's all really cool because again, like they kind of play on a lot of the stuff of like, oh hey, look, I can do this, but then John kind of shows, yes, so can I. I've been in this game. Just because I got out doesn't mean an old dog can't learn new tricks or
I
whatever it
do
may
find
be.
that that Asian assassin, the main guy, pretty funny though.
Mm.
Cause it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
he does.
he's like a big fan of John Wick, but he's like, yeah, I have to kill you, and
Yeah, I have to
he's
kill
kind of
you.
like, yeah, man, like this is awesome.
Yeah, he's like he's almost like a fanboy, right? Like in a sense, right? And then by the end of it, because a lot of the people like they kind of went against like the will of the High Table. They either got like that was one thing I was really confused about, because they said like, oh, you need to settle your affairs in like 7 days, and there's kind of this implication that like, okay, you're gonna die like very soon. But I guess like a lot of these, I guess you can try and fill me into like let me see whether I'm understanding. The Continental doesn't technically work for the high table, correct? Is that how that works?
I think the way it works is like obviously the high table is just a big organization, and then
Yeah.
there's different hotels and continentals around, I guess, the world, different
Mm.
cities that have like safe havens for assassins or whatever they may be, and like things like that. And I feel like, and essentially in this movie, the New York branch, the New York City branch, gets basically desecrated. I think that's what they say.
Consecrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
consecrated because
Oh,
the main character
sorry.
is,
Unconsecrated.
yeah,
That's what. Yeah.
because Ian McShane's character, which is the owner of that one, basically helped John Wick, and they kind of, a buddy up together along with other people in New York City. So like Lawrence's Fishburne's character as
Well,
well. He gets burned,
so
kind of thing.
so
So
this
essentially,
is
it's all kind of serving this one big, I guess, company. But a lot of the people, since they're kind of like we're sick of hearing what's happening,
well
what with overhead. So we kind of have our own rules here.
because from what it kind of seems to me, it seems to be that like the people who own like the Continental and I think it's called the Bowery is like where Lawrence Fishburne's character and also the I guess the Romanian mafia or whatever the mafia leader like she like they said like oh you have 7 days to like settle your affairs. But then, like, my understanding, oh, they're gonna kill them. But then it's like, oh, we pledge our fealty the the high table. So now their organization works for the high table. That's what I kind of saw it as because I think like Lauren Fishburne's character is like, oh hey, no, I do want to pledge fealty, and they're like, oh well, no, you're gonna get cut 7 times, and so they kill him. But I knew he wasn't gonna die, like 100%. They had to keep Lawrence Fishburne in, and now he's got like these wicked scars, and him and John Wick are gonna team up for the next movie. Like that gets me
Matrix number 4. Yeah,
yeah, well, wouldn't that be like a bit of a mind freak where
it's
like
all
you're
connected.
watching well you watch John Wick 4 and then you realize oh actually all of the John Wick movies are actually a simulation to keep Neo from helping humanity escape from the clutches of the I forget what they called the robot dude.
the
I forget what they called in the Matrix. The bad guys, the
the
bad
the
robot.
bad people. But yeah, like
Uh,
what a Reddit theory. What a Reddit theory.
well, who knows if that's
Yeah.
actually true? But yeah,
But
John Wick
yeah,
Chapter
essentially, yeah.
Three.
John Wick
Really,
has just I think it obviously steps up its game with its action. There's a really good motorbike sequence. That even just it very much feels like a video game around the end, especially when they're fighting in the Continental Hotel. So it's like you're
mm-hmm.
going to place to place. It's like, oh yeah, there's the sub boss, there's the mini boss. It has all these like little different situations that gets thrown at you, and it's like it just keeps it going. And I feel like some people, the people that I went with, they just said, man, it's really good, but there's just so much to process. Sometimes you just get like, oh man, that's a lot.
There really is a lot. I think if John Wick continues to kind of come up with these unique scenarios where he's kind of put in and he has to kind of maneuver like another really cool scene in this film is actually in the trailer where like they're like in this kind of I guess like an antique or like a museum or mini museum with like guns and stuff and like he has him kind of disassembling like a gun and like fixing it so he can like use it better and stuff like that like that's really cool but then like later on in that scene it's like they're smashing like antique like knives so they can use him and there's like he's kind of throwing these knives and killing people like it's a really great scene and like if they can come up with these like scenarios where like oh he's like fighting in an aquarium or he's fighting in a zoo now like who knows what it what
Can I
it'll
get a
be
giraffe or something? I don't know.
yeah like like I don't know what it, like as I mentioned like he went from like kind of fighting in a library to fighting in a stable to fighting on a motorbike or on a horse or something. I don't even remember when he got rid of the horse. Like that's how kind of fast paced that the movies is. I think if they kind of keep on coming up with like these kind of unique scenarios to put Keanu in and get himself out of, and now they're gonna have I guess like this kind of rebellion against the high table and oh now you're gonna see who the real assassins and then like there's this guy who's like just as good as John Wick like that's gonna be and then it's going to be like, oh, his wife's not dead. She's actually alive and been reprogrammed as a assassin to kill John Wick.
To be honest, I don't want that to happen, but like this series does have some like overtone of like the heightened sense of reality. Like there's no way it's real.
Easily, but I mean, I wouldn't totally be against that, because that would kind of be a way for them to give John Wick like once they decide like, okay, this is going to be the final John Wick movie. Okay, we're gonna it's going to be like the second to last film is when they introduce, oh, actually his wife's still alive and she's an assassin or whatever, and then the final movie would be him versus his wife or whatever, and then they all live happily ever after or some shit like
and they
that.
get another dog.
And they get another dog, or maybe a third dog. Who knows? But yeah, this movie can go on for ages.
And that's why I was saying this is like the next generation of like Dirty Harry's, or like I guess like
Die Hard.
Die Hard, or it's just like you can just keep on making these movies in different situations, and just I think people will see it. And so far it keeps on climbing. So until there's like a decline, and especially in quality, because as well as this, it's like the quality is high as well, the way it's made and everything. So like unless there's ones where it's like, oh, I don't know about this one, like it's pretty bad, but like so far they've been pretty solid across the board, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. I think if they keep at the pace that they're doing, it's going to be something that continues to be successful. And anything with more Keanu, I'm always for. But yeah, that's me for this week, really. What about yourself? What have you been watching?
So instead of watching John Wick, or I guess binge watching 30 Reasons Why, I binge watched another show, and this is Carnival Row. Carnival Row is set in kind of like a industrial era, late 1800s kind of setting, where things like fantasy things exist, and it's kind of set in this kind of fictional world, but it pretty much is like late 1800s England, where there's fairies, there's centaurs and things like that, and they kind of live in their own society. And obviously it does very much has the overtone of class and race and things like that, where the humans don't like the fairies, and kind of vice versa, and they're kind of a majority of the fantasy creatures in this place called Carnival Row, where the police treat them bad, and they're kind of segmented, and it's a very poor area where it's some of the places higher upper class society, they use centaurs as kind of like as kind of the help almost. That's kind of their function in this type of world. And that's kind of the basic kind of setting of the world. But we're pretty much introduced to these two main characters, where a human detective and a kind of fairy fall in love. And it's just kind of them working together later on. Because pretty much in the first 5 minutes, Cara Delevingne's character says, hey, the love of my life, which is Orlando Bloom's character, died. And it's kind of like a mystery of like, how did he die, or like how did they fall in love with each other, and it kind of progresses throughout the rest of the series that she finds out that he is alive. He basically faked his death because the island that they were that he died at, and how he found Cara Delevingne's character, that you find out I think in episode 3, is that there was a war, there was a backdrop of a war between fairies and humans, and there was a lot of kind of overtones of that, and Orlando Bloom's character falls in love with her, and they have a whole thing together, fakes his death, and now she's basically out for vengeance to kind of kill him, but at the same time is like, I kind of love you still. So there's a lot of that going on, along with a lot of subplots. It does have a lot of characters where there's these two siblings, a brother and sister, who are edging on the verge of bankruptcy, so they have to play nice to their next door neighbor, their new next door neighbor, who's actually a centaur. And obviously centaurs are you can't associate with them, but obviously since they're desperate for money, they have to associate with him, and kind of like I guess teach them a lesson of almost being like, you shouldn't shun people out in your own society. So there's like a lot of things going on with that, as well as I guess the backdrop of the whole city is there's a mayor of the city, and his son gets kidnapped and it's speculated that the person who got kidnapped it was from fantasy creatures, and essentially there's a subplot of them trying to start a war with humans as well. So there's a lot of intrigue going on in this series, and I guess it sets up the world in such a way where very much they can continue on this thing for quite a long seasons. It's already been renewed for a second season.
Okay.
Yeah, so
this is an Amazon series, correct?
Yes, this is an Amazon series. It's 8 episodes, and the world looks pretty good. Like I don't know how much this TV show would have cost, but I'm assuming it would have cost quite a bit, just because of the set dressing of like making things look, I guess, accurate to like what 1800s would look like. The clothes, even just the world. I kind of like this type of that type of world because it's set in like that late 1800s style, which I really like. Like it reminds me of the Order 1886, that movie, that game, which was basically a movie. There was that one. But yeah, and I love it as well. And like, speaking of love, it does very much feel like a Lovecraftian type of creation. There are monsters in this series. There are like people who can predict the future. There's like potions and things like that. So it is very much in that kind of ilk of. It scratches that fantasy itch, I guess, when it comes to TV, because there's not really much like high fantasy shows out there, I guess. Like okay. Game of Thrones really wasn't high fantasy. It didn't really have that much of it. Like it was very much grounded.
Yeah, it's medieval. Yeah, it's a medieval and some fantasy. Well, I mean, once the dragons kind of came, much more fantasy-esque, but like, yeah, like I definitely get you. By the way, so fairies and humans, are there any difference? Like centaurs obviously have like the four legs and the two hands and stuff, but do the fairies look different to humans, or like? Because I'm just imagining this guy's in love with like Tinkerbell here, like what's going on? Well, what is it in this show?
Yeah, so they're more or less there's no real difference aside from obviously the wings. They do have fairy wings.
Okay, so they just have so they just look like people.
Yes. So basically, yeah, and then obviously the fairies get treated, I guess, as second class citizens because a lot of the ones who do work at Carnival Row basically have to work at like a whorehouse. So then there's like some scenes of like, hey, we're gonna have sex with the fairy, and then they fly,
Okay, yeah. I mean, it is a bit of a common like fantasy trope to have like certain other like ethnic. I know, well, not ethnic. Well, I mean that's essentially.
It's essentially what it's
like different races of like fancy creatures are supposed to be like analogs for like races in reality, how they're supposed to be like exotic, like from another like a faraway land or whatever. It's in fantasy it's usually elves, but yeah, like it makes sense, like if they're essentially humans.
Well, elves are basically fairies.
yeah, but that's what I'm essentially saying. Like that's what it is for this show. Do they have elves in this show?
No, they don't. But
there's only centaurs and fairies.
Centaurs, fairies, and then there's like some other stuff that they kind of reveal later on. Like
I'm seeing kobolds. Like that's another one. Kobolds. That's also all of these things I know purely from like Dungeons and. I know a few other people might know from stuff like Warcraft, which has also kind of come back since I think the World of Warcraft
Classic came out.
Classic has been like a bit of a thing that everybody's been playing these days, but it's feeling like it's early 2000s, but it sounds like a pretty interesting show, and so it is set to have a second season, is it?
Yes, they're pretty much sowing the seeds of like very much this show can keep on going for at least like much more seasons, because the basic premise is there's like a string of murders that happen in Carnival Row, and think like crime happens. So Orlando Bloom's character is kind of figuring out like who did this and who's kind of killing these people and why they're connected. Is it related to me, or is it related to whichever character, whatever it may be? So he's kind of solving that. And then, Cara Delevingne's character is kind of like, helping this human family out because he needs money, as well as trying to understand, Orlando Bloom's character and who is he, because, obviously she feels betrayed because, he faked his own death and everything like that. But yeah, there's very much there's a lot of backstory in this TV show, but obviously it gets revealed over time. So there's like a kind of like a noir mystery to it where, over time you do get revealed to a lot more different things about Orlando Bloom's character, because when you see him, he pretty much is like very cocky, very arrogant. Yeah, he's very kind of depressed in a way, and you don't really know about his character until obviously later on in the show. So I feel like it's a pretty good reveal. And yeah, and generally, like overall, I really do, I guess, enjoy this show. I binge watched eight episodes, and yeah, I've been craving for something along these types of lines to have, kind of as a TV show. It kind of has a good style and style to it. And I get, yeah, Orlando Bloom's kind of back because he hasn't really acted in a very long time. So yeah, he's doing he's doing good stuff. Cara Delevingne surprisingly does a good job. As someone where she started obviously as a model and kind of worked into, because I think most people know Cara Delevingne as the Enchantress in Suicide Squad, or she was in Valerian, which I really enjoyed, but a lot of people just didn't like the roles in Valerian because like she's very like stale, I guess, her performance, but I guess she does a really good job as a fairy.
Okay, well that's good, I guess. Yeah, always good to hear that these kind of shows are being made, and the thing is, like, I think they have been doing a lot of casting for the new Lord of the Rings series, so I guess we're going to see more fantasy coming out of Amazon very soon.
Yeah, because they've got that, and they've also got the they got the Wheel of Time show as well. So like Amazon's like, so that's why I think Amazon's really, really pushing. Along with something like The Boys. They like Amazon is taking Netflix for its money, I'd say, when it comes to original content. Because like I don't know, like Netflix original content. You got 13 Reasons Why, Stranger Things. I don't know, they really don't, like they got rid of House of Cards and a few other things, but
I think a lot of people have been disappointed that the OA got cancelled. I don't know what the OA is.
I did watch the first season of OA. Okay. The OA is okay.
The OA is okay. Wait, yes. What is that about? Like
it
seems sci-fi.
It's like fantasy. It's more fantasy than sci-fi, but I think the main problem is it reveals things at a very slow pace. Like it takes one season to understand like what is going on, like right until the end. But even then, there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of mystery behind the show, where it's like why are these characters connected, what's happening, who's doing this, whatever. It's a very weird, odd series. It's hard to explain, but yeah, it's got some fantasy elements to it, and and it got canceled after the second season. I think because like there was a break between the OA season 1 came out in like 2017, and then the recent one came out in 2019. So there was, I think, too big of a gap, especially to get the audience.
And not enough people cared.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like you want that mystery. You want people to care about that mystery and keeping it alive. And I guess it very much did it. But like back to Carnival Row, I feel like it is approachable. It has the same mystery, and as mentioned before, it's planted seeds so well as a first season that you can see multiple seasons of this, like where Orlando Bloom's character goes here and does this with this character, or like we see more and more of the city, and basically the end of the first season kind of ends in like it very much is kind of starting of the Civil War, as mentioned before, where there's tension brewing, and finally the I guess keg is exploded, and now finally it's kind of like into the second season onwards, there's going to be very much more of a divide between what was happening before, which is more, I guess, civil, but now it's going to turn into, I guess, all out war, with these types of races and things like that. So that's, I guess, Carnival Row. I'd say go watch the show. I think it's a pretty good, solid first season, and I think I really enjoyed it. But with that, that's actually us for this week. Remember, you can always listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, on our website Libsyn, and the YouTube channel Marketing Movies, which, as always, like, share, and subscribe. So until next time, maybe Henry Cavill's going to appear in Carnival Row as like a fairy, but who knows? He is Geralt after all. But until next time, see ya.
Catch ya.